Okay, let's see. Can you guys see me? Chris, are you still there? Hi, Emily. Hi, Jennifer. Sorry that I'm super blue. I can't figure out how to adjust the lighting, and then I couldn't get my camera started. So you just have to deal with me being bright like this. Hi, Fern. I'll wait just a couple minutes since I was having a little bit of technical difficulties in case anyone else is waiting to join. I also have my dogs in here, so sorry if someone comes to the door, they're going to freak out a little bit. Hi, Chris. Chris, should I get going? Say hi to Emily. Okay, I'm going to get going. I'm Amber, the owner and teacher at the Imaginative Music Studio, and Chris wanted me to talk to everyone about how I do my piano discovery classes, which is basically a hybrid of road trip and kitty keys. I have some notes here, but if you guys have questions as I go, post them and I will try to answer them. So my piano discovery group is for ages 4 to 8. 8 is a little bit on the older end, but I purposely did that for families that wanted to put siblings in the group together, and just for those students who tend to move a little bit slower. They might not have a keyboard at home to practice on. So basically what they're learning strictly in lesson time and not so much at home. So it has worked having that wide range for this group. I have up to 5 students in a class. I've done as much as 6, which is fine. My space is a little bit small for 6, but it does work, and I've had as few as 2. I would say 4 to 5 is a really good number for that. They're 30 minutes long, and I'm going to go over the typical class structure that I do. I try to have something on the table when they come in to keep them busy while we're waiting for everyone to show up. So coloring sheets, anything like that that can kind of keep their hands busy. Otherwise, they start kind of exploring the room and getting into stuff. So I'm sure you guys know how that is. So they come in, start coloring once everyone is in here. And I'm going to use Road Trip. Since that's the curriculum I use for their music, I'm going to use that in my example. Once they're all in, I address the new song. And I'll use, we're using the Outdoor Adventure, which can't really see, but the first song in that book is the one I'll use as an example, which is Go, Go, Go. For those of you not familiar with Road Trip is a coloring book with the piano music in it. So with each song, there's a song on one side, and then on the other side, there's a worksheet that goes along with whatever the learning concept is. So for Go, 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 this song goes from C to G, and it's all quarter notes. So what I would, the learning concept that I would probably pull out of this lesson is talking about quarter notes. There's quarter rest. You could talk about stepping up. So what I like to do is explain the song to them, and we sing it together with the soundtrack. I think you definitely should use the soundtrack in these lessons. I have found that once we're singing, when they're all singing, it kind of keeps them on task. It helps them learn how the melody sounds, and they're able to identify the pitch much better. So when they do move to the piano, it makes for a much easier transition when you're going straight from the singing to playing the notes. They already know when they're going up or when they're going down, staying the same. So that's what we would do first. We would sing, and before we even move to the piano, I like to give everyone a rhythm instrument. So like a little tambourine, jingle bells, triangle, hand drum, anything like that. Again, keeps their hands busy, learn the beat to the song. They love to sing it. And then after we do that, we move to the piano. I like to have everyone take turns at one piano. I have tried to put everyone on their own keyboard, which is what I do in my older groups, and this usually just turns to chaos. It's a lot harder to manage 5 or 6 different students at separate pianos because they all need help at the same time. So I recommend putting them on one piano. While one is playing the piano, the other ones can play the instruments and sing. And if you have 5 kids, you go through that song 5 times. It's really good for them, the repetition. For most of them, I'm going to be really helping them with the song. They're playing it at performance speed typically because I'm using the soundtrack, again, with the lyrics. I will just point with them as they go, or I'll press the keys with them. It just depends on what they need. If they've just turned 4, I might hold their hand and play it with them. If they're closer to 8 or 7, a lot of times they might be able to do it on their own. And I might just point to the music or give them a hint if they need the hint. So it really works even with those older kids. And the songs are easy enough, but challenging enough for both age ranges there, that huge age range. So it does definitely work. After that, we move back to our table. We finish our worksheets that we have within either the road trip book or extra worksheets that I might pull from Kitty Keys that would go with the particular lesson that day. If we have time after that, then we move on to games. Usually we have time for one game. If more, we can do 2 games. I always like to have a little bit more on hand, and I like to keep the class moving. The more you can keep it moving, the more interested they stay. And honestly, every time I end a class, they're usually surprised it's over and sad to go, which is how I like all of my classes to end. Let's see. I want to go over now specifically within the class structure I mentioned. If you have questions about anything I mentioned, go ahead and ask, but I'm also going to show you some things that I personally use that help. With the worksheets, my new favorite thing, and I've seen these before, but I just bought them, used them for the first time last week, and my students loved these. There's going to be a reflection, but it's the plastic sheet protectors that you can put a sheet in and take it out, and you color right on top of the sheet protector. So we did a Christmas theme. For whatever reason, this is a lot more fun to them than coloring on paper. I think because, one, they love using markers, and here's the markers that come with it. I got these on Amazon, and they really love doing it, erasing it, doing it, erasing it, doing it, erasing it. So not only are you kind of saving from having to print, let's say, 30 of the same copy, they can redo it over and over and over within the same class. And I am totally fine with that. If I have a student who is focused on a particular worksheet, I'll give you an example. Last week we had this worksheet. Can't really see it, but basically it's ornaments on the staff, and you wrote in the note names. Great worksheet. Some kids did it, you know, a couple minutes and then went on to the next thing, and I had one little girl who did that the entire 30 minutes for the most part, which I was totally fine with. I think you need to be flexible as long as they're occupied, learning, listening. I'm fine if they don't do I don't force them to do every single activity with the class, as long as they're being productive. So that's what I use for the worksheets. To put them in, as far as what worksheets I use, if you are a Kitty Keys teacher, if you have, go to the kitchen, there's the Kitty Keys plus lesson plans, and they will go along with every, there's a lesson that goes along with every road trip song. I think, Chris, I'm not sure if it's every book or if it's just outdoor adventure. Anyways, she can correct me on that if I'm wrong. But the lesson plans will list more activities that go along with the road trip songs, games, finger plays, worksheets. So for this song that I was mentioning, Go, 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 the first song in Road Trip, you could use the worksheet that is stepping notes on the staff that explains stepping up. Oh, this lighting's driving me nuts. Anyways, we're used stepping up the staff, which is the same thing they're doing in the song. There's lots of sheets that talk about keyboard geography, like CDE is by 2 black keys, FGAB is by 3 black keys. Again, put them in those sheet protectors and they can color that over and over and over again. The more they can see the same thing, the better. Don't worry about repeating the same thing over and over throughout the course of their lessons. Other things I find helpful, buttons. Inevitably, every lesson, a student says they don't want to play the piano. I don't force them to. But if they do, they get a pin for they have lanyards, or they could put on their shirt, and they like the pins enough that every time I say, if you play the piano, I'll give you a pin, they play every time. Stamps are another big one. These little stamps you can get on Amazon. Keeps them busy. They like to stamp their worksheets. They like to get a stamp if they do something like complete a worksheet. Another fun thing I'm currently using right now is it's a practice incentive, and I want to clarify that for the piano discovery group, I don't require practice. It's encouraged to play at home if they have a keyboard, but the lessons do not, the lessons, they don't need to practice to enjoy their lesson time and to learn something. So these are the little bracelets we use. Probably seen me post about them before. Kids, they love them, and they earn a new charm each week that they play at home. They only have to play at home once, and they get that. So it just makes playtime at home seem fun and not like a chore. So just setting up good habits. Okay. Oh, games. Favorite games that we do at the end of the class. Bingo is, like, without fail, always a hit. I have a few bingo games that I made. I also use the Kitty Keys bingo games you can get on the Kitty Keys website. There are, I think, 5 different sets, Chris, of the bingo games there. So you can pull out a different one each week. And the kids love them. Sometimes we do blackout, 5 in a row, just whatever works within that particular group. Another game I love you can get this on Teachers Pay Teachers, is it's a giant board game. I want to say there's like 100. Again, you can't really see it because of the glare. There are 8.5 by 11 size game spots for your giant board game, and you just pick and choose what you're learning. So if you want to do just finger numbers and note value, then you can do that for your game of the day. I use giant dice. They love that. There's also these staff on the back, giant keyboard. This one is from Kitty Keys. You can play games with that. You can just do exploration using bingo chips, finding 2 black keys, 3 black keys, and oh, dropped my cards. Let's see. I already mentioned it, but there are now lesson plans on the Kitty Keys website. The Kitty Keys Plus lesson plans that are designed to match Kitty Keys and Road Trip together, which is what I'm doing in my classes. That's a great resource. Let's see what else. I know I have a question. I had a question. Kristen had asked me earlier about marketing this type of class and what times I teach. She says pre-K has been a tricky group for her because of the variety of schedules. Same for me. However, this particular class has been very easy for me to market. I have 65 students now, and this makes up about half my studio just since September. And the reason is, I believe, a couple things. The wider age range, 4 to 8. This allows siblings to come at the same time, which has been really nice for parents to be able to have 2 of their children come at one time versus 2 separate times if they're both doing piano. Another thing for times, 4 o'clock and later has been the prime time. And I even have some at as late as 6 for parents who work. So when I had first started to try these types of groups for the preschool age, I found that the earlier times didn't really work in my area. It really had to be after all of the kids are out of school. So 4 and later has been my best. I have a couple 3:30 classes that are going, but they're my lightest for that reason. So for marketing, where I market, I post in Facebook groups, moms groups, as long as they allow for those types of posts. That's been my #1 resource for getting new students. Yeah, so does anyone have any specific questions on how I run the class? Anything I did not address? Oh, hold on a second, you guys. I didn't know I was supposed to scroll down on the comments. Okay. Now I see everything. Give me just a second to catch up. I am sorry. I am having a blue Christmas. Jennifer. Okay. Yes, the super soundtracks for Road Trip are the biggest help. So don't try to do the books. They're great on their own, but don't try to do them without the soundtracks, because it's going to make classroom management much easier if you use those soundtracks. Trust me, I've tried it. Soundtracks, because I have a big giant speaker that hooks up via Bluetooth to my phone, and it lights up and flashes, and so yeah, Ruth, yes, it's Mr. Rogers. None of my kids know who that is. Unfortunately, none of my students, but okay. The sheets I showed you with the stockings are from Sprout Beat. I have a couple for them. Okay. My pins I get from Oriental Trading Company. Really cheap. They're another good place. Dollar Tree and Walmart, sometimes around the holidays, will have in their gift section, like their party supply section, they'll have themed pins. And from Oriental Trading Company, I also got the camping themed ones. Those go perfect with road trip. And yep, I will get you the link for that giant board game. Let's see. Chris, the classes are 30 minutes. I follow, so our schedule is, I follow the school year. We start in September and then we end in the middle of June. Students can join anytime. I recommend when you're doing this type of lesson, especially when you're all learning together, to pick materials that move laterally if you want to be able to fill classes mid-year. Road Trip is really good at that. I could have a student start tomorrow and they could come right in without having been at any of the other classes. All of the materials I use in these groups move laterally. They'll learn something maybe in September. They might see the same thing in a couple weeks. You're always repeating things. And I know we do that even with our older students that forget things. So Road Trip is really good for that lateral movement. You could go through all 4 books with a student, and so think of them starting at 4. They could be, a couple of years going through a road trip and be more than ready to go into a traditional type of group lesson. Okay, what do I move them to after outdoor adventure? That's a good question, because this is the second time I've done this group, this type of lesson group, but I only did it once before with one group of kids for a few months. So this will be my first time going a whole year with this many groups. The plan right now is, I think I'm going to do to the lake. We'll see. And since we end in June, I'm also thinking of doing a week-long camp, mini camp with To the Farm or to the carnival in the summertime. If we then what I plan on doing, if I get enough signups, is that Friday will be like a mini recital, and I'm going to bring in a little petting zoo, and we'll do this at a park somewhere. If I do To the Carnival, same idea, but the last day would be like mini carnival games and things like that. So that's the plan right now. Any more questions? Do they play in your recitals? They can if they want to. I have 30 of my little road trip students right now. One played at the recital, and she played it was a Christmas recital, and we used the Piano Pronto First Christmas solos for them, and we used them in class too for the 3 weeks leading up to break. So I did have one that played at the recital. I'm thinking about maybe doing a separate recital for those students. Because of how I run the class, I don't really have time to individually work with each of them on a specific song as I do in my other classes. So that's the only thing that makes it a little trickier. So we'll see moving forward. I think this spring I will do a recital for my older students, and then a recital for just my discovery group students, and then we can all work on songs together. They're also required recital students, or students playing at the recital are required to practice at home. Some of them don't have a keyboard, so that's another hurdle, and the parents have to help them at home, and I know sometimes that doesn't always happen. So I haven't had a lot of signups, but that did remind me of one thing that I did not mention. If you are using Road Trip Outdoor Adventure or Road Trip to the Lake, those are both on Piano Maestro, and that has been a huge, huge help. One of the reasons I did specifically go with this road trip book, because the students who have iPads, and not all of them do, really love to play along with their songs at home. My biggest practicer out of all of my students in my studio is my 5-year-old little road trip student, and I get reports every week that she's my star student. She's played as much as 5 hours on road trip on Piano Maestro. So that is another good source. You can do that in class too, which we've done, but again, I like to put it on one piano instead of all at their own piano. It just can get a little chaotic when they're all at their own space. Let's see. Oh, and one more app that's good for this age is Rhythm Swing. They seem to love that for the most part. Let's see. Okay. Yes, Carol has great pre-reading music, and I've also used Susan's music for Halloween. I had a couple, I did have a couple of the young students play at that recital, and they used some of Susan's Halloween music. So that was great. She also has the worksheet I held up that you couldn't really see, that I said had all the music notes on the staff. That was also from Susan's website too. So let's see, any other questions that I may have missed? Okay, I think we're done. I will grab the link to the giant board game. I know Chris is going to get some links. And if you need any other links of what I talked about, I will grab those and post those in the group today. So thanks, everyone. Bye.